Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We're going to call this part two. We'll say, the joys of home podcasting and home radio. And as I say, we're all at the mercy of the bandwidth, which is rightfully so, being prioritized to the first responders. But it just makes things a little bit painful when you're trying to do stuff like this. Thank you all for sticking with us, and yeah, we have Lance back on with us. As I was saying before we did get cut off, we were talking about Diamonds in the Sky, his book series. You can get that on Amazon right now. There we are, and we are back, ladies and gents. Great. Okay, so moving on then to the next section. We've quite a lot to talk about, so we knew that this was going to be a rather long episode, but yeah, we got lots and lots and lots to get through. So, where were we, Lance? What were we talking about?
We finished on Diamonds in the Sky. I think we were going to talk about, well, we got loads to talk about, but we could talk about some of the other more well-known projects I've been involved with.
Yeah, I tell you what, let's get into Paratrooper, because that was the next one up on the player here, and that's one where you're not going to talk too long about that one, but we will talk about it because it is one of your projects.
I can talk about that more than I can talk about Pegasus Bridge.
True. Well, let's pop the poster up on the screen here as well.
Yeah.
And boom, there it is.
I'll talk about both of them because I guess they kind of
they're of a similar keel.
They are, and one project brought about the other. I was involved in World War II true story feature film for the best part of 3 years of my life called Pegasus Bridge. It all looked like it was going to happen, and I don't want to say too much about why it didn't happen, but it didn't happen, and I really thought it was going to be the film that was going to change everything. Not only that, it was a very, very important film for a number of reasons, not least of which were we were on target to get it out for the 50th anniversary of D-Day, which would have been absolutely fantastic timing. And then hold on, my friend Jack Beckett wanted to know when I was talking about the historical stuff, so I'm just letting him know. Talking about it now, part two. So there we go. Yeah, so we did a huge amount of work for that project, prepping and location. So we had some of it cast. We got various actors attached, and I'm going to name a couple of people in particular. Myself and Sharon Sorrentino, the casting director, did a vast amount of work, staked our reputations on it. But as with all these projects, you're always dependent on other people, and the world of production funding is a very murky world on any level of funding for films, and you don't get to always work with the people you would choose to work with in that arena. And I'm going to leave that there. So that project didn't happen, and it was a real shame that it didn't, because there was a lot of veterans that were alive who were there who really wanted to see it, and all of them except for one are now dead. And if we had got it out on time on the original schedule, which we could have easily made had everybody been pulling in the same direction with the same intentions, at least 5 of them would have got to have seen it, and that's probably the biggest travesty of all. And I took that pain on board very personally, and really felt as though I'd let them down. Paratrooper was a much smaller project aimed at television, because of course TV series is where it's at now, and we've had Band of Brothers, we've had Band of Brothers Pacific, but we haven't had something that covers the European contribution to the war effort in World War II that's of a similar vernacular. And airborne forces is a very interesting topic, and it's a subject that's of huge personal interest to me. And I'm a big fan of the old school historical war epic films like Bridge Too Far, The Longest Day, Zulu Dawn, to pick some different eras, Tora, those kinds of movies. So I always wanted to make something in that genre, and I've always been very interested in airborne forces. And I thought, well, we'll come back to Pegasus Bridge another time. But while we were researching Pegasus Bridge, we found out about this black paratrooper called Sidney Cornell, who I've got a photograph of here. And he was somebody who came from Portsmouth. He was born and bred in Portsmouth. That's a picture of him there. Mm-hmm. And he was the battalion boxing champion of the 7th Parachute Battalion of the Parachute Regiment. And they had a role that was very close to Pegasus, where they landed an hour after the gliders, they ran over the bridge, and their job was to occupy the village on the western side of the perimeter of that area of D-Day and basically stop the German reinforcements getting to the bridge and attack the bridge directly. Mm-hmm. So if anybody got through 7th Battalion, the bridge was going to be in danger. So I thought, why don't we do a small film about his life, but keep the action away from the bridge, because he wasn't really involved in the stuff on the bridge. And that meant that we didn't have to build the bridge set, which meant the costs of the production really shot right down. Mm-hmm. And because we'd got all these things in place to make Pegasus Bridge, we got these locations, we got the cooperation of lots of people. We'd already spoken to lots of reenactment groups, vehicle owners, all these people that were willing to help us, and willing to help us for not a lot of money, I need to point out. In some cases, they were willing to come and turn up for free. We had loads of people that wanted to just be involved. Wow. Because they were as passionate about the subject as I am. And they really are passionate about it, which is why when you're doing true, it's fine if you're doing fictional historical drama, then you can do what you want. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing true stories and you're depicting real people that were really at these battles, that really took part in these conflicts, you've got to get everything accurate. You've got to be as close to the truth as you can. Now, I know you have to ram things into a limited narrative. It's not always easy. And we've got Cornell running around all over the place, in places at some stages where we don't know where he was in the battle. We've just assumed because he was a runner. And the advantage of him being a runner in the battle is I can have him running around, going to places that I want to show the audience, which is very helpful. Mm-hmm. And then when we were putting that stuff together, we decided to do a couple of crowdfunding campaigns to test the water, to see what interest there was and how much we might be able to raise just from that. And we knew we couldn't raise enough for the movie. We needed about 250 grand to make the pilot, because it's a 2-hour film still. It's 2 60-minute episodes. And then the thing is it works as a feature film on its own. Mm-hmm. If we make this movie, we can sell it as a movie on its own, but it also works as a pilot for a TV show. So we're kind of having our cake and eating it on this one. And then 2 of the tanks that it took me ages to find were about to be sold off to America. So I said, why don't we do a crowdfunding campaign so we can shoot the battle scene with those tanks. We'll cast the people that are going to be in that scene, cast a wonderful actor called Alex Reese, mm-hmm. who plays a British para called Michael McGee, who charged a tank in the open with a Bren gun. I showed you that scene yesterday.
Yeah, it was really good.
And we went and we filmed that scene, and that's where all that money went. And then we went and did a recce to Holland, because I'd already written. There's 10 episodes of Paratrooper, and I've already written 8 of them. And you can see I've got a pitch pack here, and this pitch pack kind of outlines all the different episodes, all the characters that are in each episode. There's a pitch for each episode, and so on. And this is the sort of thing that we send to Netflix or Amazon, and outlines potential future seasons. It's got actors attached, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Very professional. And so that if we got the green light, we would be ready to go, because it's very important to be ready to go. And and there's some pictures from, I think if I put that, let me put that there. That's from the tank battle.
Okay.
That's Alex Reese there, playing Michael McGee
uh-huh.
on the bottom right. And we shot that scene and we got that in the can. And then we thought, okay, well, we've got to go and find the rest of the money independently. And we looked in Holland, and we've had a couple of very generous donators and I've been working on this project with Tony Fadil, who's a lovely friend of mine, who's an actor and a producer. Mm-hmm. And Tony's got a little part in the show, but he was really all about helping me. And he said, well, whatever acting part you give me, don't worry about it. I'll do whatever's appropriate. And so he's only got a small role in the show. And we were running around trying to find the money for it. And the funny thing is we just got what I would call, I wouldn't say the money was in the bank, but we basically found people who wanted to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And who were very interested that it was a black story about a black paratrooper that had never been told before. That was the sort of thing they were looking to invest money in. And because actually when I found that person, they said, oh, well, none of your projects will be of any interest to them. And I said, why? What are they looking to produce? And they said, anything to do with black history. And I was like, well,
actually.
So we were all over that. And then COVID happened and the pandemic. So, and we've only got a limited window in which to complete Paratrooper because we shot some of it already. And if we don't film, let's say, the remaining scenes by the end of 2021, I'm really going to have too big a problem with continuity, and I'm going to have too big a problem with the age of the actors. Some of who were cast slightly older because people did look older back then. You know, there wasn't moisturizer and all those wonderful things that you and I get to use today. So yeah, I mean, if we don't get the money, so we're actively looking for 200 grand or thereabouts to complete the pilot, and that's the bare minimum. That's paying everybody 100 quid a day. That's the minimum amount of money. We really do need more than that. And these guys were talking about putting 2 million in, and that would have been a really comfortable budget, and we were going to increase the shooting schedule by 2 weeks, which was a lot more comfortable, and we could offer everybody more money, and we just redone the budget for that, and then boom, this happened. So I don't know if that money's still going to be available to us when we come back and look into production again. And if we can't get the rest of it in the can by 2021, I mean, it's going to be very demoralizing because I already worked on one World War II project for 3 years that didn't happen. And now I'm working on another one that may or may not happen.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of us in the same kind of boat, you know, with investors putting up money and then Corona hit and so on. I have a couple of projects where, you know, the money was in the escrow and I was taken out of it again. So, you know, what can you do? But I'm like, I don't see any reason why these investors would, you know, they're still going to believe in the project. They still want to invest in the storyline. They still believe in you and your ability to make it. Corona hasn't affected or changed your ability or that of the project or the commercial ability. Is that right? Whatever.
I think the thing you need to understand about anything big or significant that might happen, that might filter down, like Brexit, for example. When Brexit happened, there was a lot of films, indie films, that went under. And, you know, I told you earlier in part one that I was running around trying to find money for that Judi Dench film I wanted to do. And one of the places we went to was the Sardinian Film Commission. And one of the things that happened during the process for that is that at one point, all of the English projects got dropped from the application process. I need to say this very clearly. We did all get allowed back in again. But
okay.
at one point, because Brexit happened, there was a feeling among European film commissioners that, oh, well, if you're leaving Europe, we're not going to put you at the top of the pile of our application process. And so we had some problems with that were very much caused by the Brexit narrative at the time. There was another issue on another project I was working on where we had, because most of what people need to understand is for independent films, you don't have a studio, okay? A true independent film has no studio backing them. So it means you go and find your money independently. That's what an indie film is. Whether that's from a rich benefactor or your old Aunt Edwina who's got 20 grand under a mattress somewhere and who's willing to give it to you for whatever strange reason for your film. And Simon Cox's investors for Kaleidoscope Man were very much people like that. And, you know, so that's where the money comes from. And if that money's not there for whatever reason, whether it's because actually pandemic shut down my business, whatever my other business was, for 4 or 5 months. So now I don't have those luxury incomes. So now actually I don't have the spare income to spend on little Johnny for Christmas. So because I don't have that, I can't also put money into your film project. These things will affect the indie world. We will feel them more than others. Crowdfunding campaigns. Simon Cox is doing one at the minute for his next sci-fi thing, and he started it a few days ago, and he's nearly raised $3,000 already, and that's a testament to his positivity and his core fan base, and he delivered as well. And we only just finished delivering all the perks for the journey, and Paratrooper, we did them very quickly, but the journey, it took a lot longer to do the perks for the journey because there was lots of issues over copyright and all sorts of other stuff I won't bother getting into. But Simon's got a core fan base. So to raise $3,000 during a pandemic is nothing short of a miracle.
Absolutely. To raise $3,000 anytime, but let alone now during this time is and for a film, no less, for a movie, for something that people wouldn't consider like a priority or a necessity right now. Is testament to what Simon can do.
Crowdfunding is a kind of a way of raising film that's for money for films that's been overused now, and it's very difficult. And you can't raise crowdfunding for a film like Paratrooper. It's just too. You're asking for too much money.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there that don't know you and don't know whether you're capable of making a film of the quality that they want to see. So
especially when they forked over £250,000. It's not a couple of grand; it's £250,000.
I mean, for Paratrooper, we're really looking for a couple of high-level independent investors who can afford to invest in it and who are passionate about the subject as I am, or somebody like Anne Menser, who's the person who's got the finger on the green light button at Netflix. She's the British Drama Commissioner. And we have written to her, and I know she's commissioned very few projects since she took over that job, and I think there's lots of reasons for that, which I'm sure are nothing to do with her. But anything that's World War II true story, you've got all the people out there that are interested in that period who straight away will watch it. That's anybody that saw all the films that I saw that was growing up. Then you've got a new generation of people that you see the casting of Harry Styles in Dunkirk.
That was casting genius. That's what that was.
Really clever casting, and you know why they put him in there?
Of course they do.
Because there's not a lot of 14 to 18-year-old girls that will go and watch a war movie.
No, they will.
Will go and watch a war movie if Harry Styles is in it.
Yeah.
So Dunkirk, the casting of Dunkirk was very clever, and that was a really shrewd piece of casting. And I'll tell you what, Mr. Styles, to give him credit, he was pretty good in it. Actually.
He was pretty good in it. But the thing is, right, that the point is, if he was absolutely god-awfully rubbish, it wouldn't have mattered because Tom and Killian was carrying the movie.
He only had a small role. So
exactly. But he did turn out to be really great. So bravo, good job, Harry. But if he wasn't, I'm saying that his point, the reason for him was to get people who wouldn't ordinarily come and see a war movie, as you said, 12 to 14-year-old girls. Now they will. And if he's no good,
So there's a new generation of people that are looking for true stories. I'll tell you another thing about American audiences as well. American audiences that are interested in films like Lone Survivor and that kind of stuff, those are all the people that will buy A Bridge Too Far on Blu-ray. They'll buy The Longest Day on Blu-ray. They'll buy the Band of Brothers box sets, and they're interested in the European stuff. They're not just interested in American stories. That's a very blinkered Hollywood producer's mentality. Every person I know from that audience space, and they're all the people that play the historical board games that are on the shelves behind me. I go to these conventions in America and I meet all the people that play those games, and a lot of them are ex-military American. That's the first time I ever met any Trump voters, which was an interesting experience that we won't get into. But basically, these are the people that watch those films, and they're always saying to me, we can't get the European stuff. There was a really good German Band of Brothers equivalent told from a German soldier's point of view called Generation War. And it took ages for Generation War to come out in America. It's one of the highest selling DVD sets in Europe. Really good show. You should definitely watch it. A little bit contrived. The Jewish storyline doesn't really fly with me, but it's still a very, very well made show. A lot of money was spent on it. It looks really good. It's a very good piece for people that are into historical films. It's like a 3-part, sort of three 90-minute parts, I think, something like that. And that did incredibly well, and I think it is available in America now, and it's done well. It's done well on, I don't forget whether it's on Netflix or where it is. So there is an audience out there for true story historical drama, because they love it. If it's done properly, they love it. And if you do it properly, and they can see you're doing it properly, like, you know, Band of Brothers was done properly, these people become your own PR machine online, because there are forums dedicated to historical World War II forums. They're all over the internet. War History Online, which I may or may not be talking to at the minute. Jack Beckett is a friend of mine who runs that. That's got like millions of views a week. I did an interview on there for Pegasus Bridge. That interview got like 64,000 shares in a week.
Wow, that's quite a lot. I'm gonna jump over to the comments real quick and just try and keep up with those. We got a number of people watching in here. Paula Clark saying, "Hey Jay and Lance, hey Paula, how's things?" Your own producer Nicola Gregory's watching us. My own brother's here too. Colin, John Ruddy, what's going on, guys? We have a comment here coming in through Twitch from someone called Donovan1418, who's from Portsmouth. He says he knows the Cornell family personally, and
me too. Hi Donovan, me too.
And he's also, second part of that question, he's asking, are you still casting for Paratrooper, and if so, how might he be able to, I assume that he's an actor, how might he be able to approach you with the relevant information?
Right, so first of all, no, we're not casting any more roles for Paratrooper, and when we will be, which is when the money comes in, and I've been completely upfront with this on all the Paratrooper social media. Well, I'm always very honest about everything that's happening, and I wanted to be able to do Paratrooper as a project where I could be completely transparent at all times, and I wasn't working with other third parties. So it's mine and Tony's project, and we would never give it up. We would never even give up part of it to anybody, where we couldn't talk about freely what was happening, unless it was completely fully funded and the money was in the bank, and that was a stipulation. Okay, that's different. So there isn't many roles left to cast, because most of the actors are already in place. We did a big casting for that way earlier, and we did read through, and so we pretty much got all of those roles. There might be a couple of little bits. And then there's some reenactment groups that are getting involved, who are doing some bit parts, and I'm talking young reenactors under the age of 30. I'm not talking historical reenactors that are 55 and all the rest of it. We've had some older guys come down and help us out as well in scenes where it's appropriate.
Sure.
But So the second thing I need to say to Donovan is, when it comes to casting, all my casting goes through Sharon Sorrentino. And she's my casting director on everything, and I'll use Sharon if I'm not casting in-house. And when I say casting in-house, like, there's a little project I'm doing at the minute called Behind Closed Doors, good title for it. I'm not putting anything about it public on the internet until it's made, but all the casting for that happened in-house. All the roles in that script were all written straight away for somebody I knew, and I didn't really want anybody but the person that I wrote the role for to play the part. And then there were a couple of roles I kind of kept it flexible, but
sure.
So that's an in-house casting, so I didn't even need to use Sharon for that. In fact, I don't think Sharon's even read the script for that one. Anything that's not in-house, Sharon's always involved, and it all goes through her. That's my aim, is even if it was picked up, if the show was picked up by Netflix, like Paratrooper, I would ask them, and certainly fight very hard, to have Sharon do the casting on that show, unless it was a stipulation of theirs for funding that we've got to use X, Y, because why shouldn't we?
Of course, absolutely. And Sharon's wonderful as well. We've known each other for quite a while now. Pegasus, actually, the audition for Pegasus was the first time I ran into both you guys, and ever since then, yeah, she's a awesome person.
We did some early castings for Pegasus because we did a concept trailer, and we wanted a couple of people in the concept trailer who were going to be in the film. So that was why I think. And then people saw a lot of pictures for the concept trailer for Pegasus. We never made the actual trailer public because it wasn't for public consumption. but people saw a lot of stills and they saw us filming. So I think everybody assumed that like the movie had been shot. It hadn't been shot. We just had a little bit of money, which wasn't publicly raised. It wasn't a crowdfunder or anything like that. And we went away and made this little trailer. And we also did some concept posters and, all the kinds of things you do to sell a film to get the budget that you need.
Sure.
So that's what the early castings for Pegasus were about. And at that stage as well, it looked like it was going to happen. It looked like the film was going to happen pretty quickly. I mean, we even had Henry Cavill's agent contact us at one point and ask us if there was anything in the film for him. That's a true story.
Okay.
And, the answer to which was yes, which part do you want to play?
Of course. What do you need?
I think he decided he wanted to do Batman versus Superman, which, with his interesting mouth.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, $400 million movie. Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. So what's next then? Because we've been on now for coming on 2 hours. So what's next? What's the next projects for you?
Okay, so I'm going to continue doing stuff with the Outcast, and when the lockdown's finished, just so people know, and this is a good shout out for Donovan as well if he wants to get to meet me, and this is a good way to get to work with me, by the way, is we do a drop-in acting session on a Monday night. It's cheap as chips. Mm-hmm. It's not really a run-for-profit situation because it doesn't really break even, but it's a drop-in acting improvisation class, very completely inspired by Graham Fletcher Cook's stuff that he taught us, and actors, anyone can turn up. You don't need to be a member, but once you've been, you're considered to be a member of the Outcast Theatre Company, and because you've come down and you've supported our class, we will then go to you for any Outcast productions. So those are productions that me and Dickon are doing together. They will come under the Outcast banner.
Mm-hmm. And
Behind Closed Doors, which is this little film that I'm doing, that's the next feature film I want to shoot. I basically wrote it on the basis of, okay, if I'm making a film that's got absolutely no money, I've got zero budget, I'm financially destitute, what can I write? And I sat down and that was the script I wrote. And it's a question of, being well enough to make it and having the right window, and also hoping that the actors are going to be available. We can't shoot it all in one go. I've got various people that have all offered to chip in to do catering on different days and all kinds of things. Nicola Gregory, who I believe is watching.
She is indeed, yeah.
She's going to be the producer on that one, I believe. And I've just sent her the latest copy of the script today, and she's going to see if she can get us a little bit of money so that we can at least, cover train fares and have
just some development money. Just to go back on the Outcast, people are asking here where is it? Right. So it's Mondays in London. Whereabouts?
Okay, so first of all, follow us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page called The Outcast. I think it's called The Outcast Theatre Company, something like that.
Just
look up The Outcasts on Facebook, Outcast Theatre, I think. It's at the it's in Old Street, and it's at the Courtyard Theatre in Old Street on Monday nights. Now, at the minute, we will resume those classes as soon as the lockdown is officially lifted. But I think I have to say that the theatre itself is in lockdown, and they're not expected to open before September. Mm-hmm. So I can't see it happening before September. If we do open before September, we'd like to try and do the Scrooge Christmas show. And obviously, again, to take part in that show, that'd all go through the regulars of the Outcast. And we've got a core group of actors that come down there regularly. I'm going to mention some of them now. Debbie Krieger, Toby Cockrell, Jake Isengard Maynard, some kind of name similar to that. Lovely guy. We've Andrew Francis, who I've worked with before, Oriana. There's a load of Anna Sher people that come down from time to time. Anna Sher, another legend in the acting world, who of course taught both myself, Dickon, and Graham, and Steve Fletcher Cook, and Dexter Fletcher, and is very much responsible for their careers. And I was a much later student of hers. I was in my 20s when I went there. But some of the names I mentioned have been going there. Dickon's been going to Anna since he was a kid, and he taught there as well. She's a wonderful woman. Her and Charles Ferrell. They should get OBEs. I don't know if she's got an OBE, but if she hasn't, she should certainly get one for all the contribution she's made to people's lives, not just acting, but people's
What's
lives.
the difference? I never know what the difference is in an OBE, an MBE, and what's the difference?
I don't know. Whatever the highest one is, that I don't know if they come with any money, but she should get something that gives her a big chunk of change as well, because she bloody deserves it. Anna Scher's a legend and just a lovely woman, and there's a lot of people that have taken advantage of her at different times in her life, which is a real shame, because she's too nice, but she's amazing, and she's done amazing things. She still runs her class. I need to mention Kerry Ann, who because funny enough, in Behind Closed Doors, I'll let a little thing out here, I'm acting in that as well, and it's the first big role in a film I've ever done, and I started off as an actor, and I always wanted to do one big acting role in a film. And I thought, well, the only way I'm going to get to do that is if I write it and direct it myself. So I did a Mark Zammit. I'm going to be in it. And me and Jason Fleming always wanted to do a film together. So we've got most of our scenes together.
Nice.
And but like I say, you're not going to hear any more about this film until it's finished. So there'll be nothing on social media about it at all. And but that film that I wrote, what's what I was going to say now? It's something to do with Anna. It'll come back to me. But that's the next film project that I'm going to do behind closed doors, which has got zero money, and a load of the outcasts. It's not an outcast film, but a load of the outcasts are getting first dibs on a lot of the little parts in. So Annetta Martinson, for example, I'm going to be able to confirm to her tomorrow that she's got a part that I said she was probably going to get. There's some other people I'm developing projects with who I want to mention quickly as well.
Sure.
The very talented Oaken sisters, Samantha and Cass Oaken. I wrote a short for them called Escape. I didn't film it. Like I say, I don't film everything I write. Alex Tabrizi, a really dear friend of mine, who's DOP on Behind Closed Doors, is editing Escape for them, I believe, right now. And Samantha and Cass Oaken, who I met when I filled in on a casting job for Sharon, and then met them some years later at Patrick Ryder's film screening, who's another guy I've written a film for. They're really lovely people, and I just like their energy, and I'm going to do a couple of more projects with them. I think we're going to do a feature film together. I wrote parts for them in Behind Closed Doors, so they're going to be in Behind Closed Doors as well. So the stuff I'm doing with them. There's another actor, fantastic actor that I met through your agent, actually, Elaine Eagleston, who's a good friend of mine.
Ex-agent.
She's got an actor called Johnny Neal on her books. Me and Johnny really hit it off. I got a lot of love for Johnny, and I'm involved as an actor in a project of one of his, because I love doing acting. It's not my main focus, but I love it. So I'm always up for doing little acting roles in people's projects where the role is appropriate.
Of course.
And I'm happy to audition. I don't expect people to give me parts. I said that to somebody in a film previously where they said, what do you want? And I said, I'd love to do a little role in it, but I don't expect you to give it to me. You give me a script and I'll audition for it like anybody else. And anyway, we did a read-through for Behind Closed Doors on Monday this week on Skype, and which worked considerably better than Skype today. And I had 15 people on that read-through, and that was the first time Johnny had heard me act. So he said, I've got this little role for you on this other little series we're making. So I'm like, great. And it sounds, he told me about the role last night. It sounds perfect for me.
Nice.
Me and him have got a couple of projects we're developing, and we're also doing a business where we're going to be doing read-throughs of new writers' feature film scripts for them, and providing the actors for them, and doing feedback and deconstructing their scripts, and it's all going to be part of a package service. So me and him are doing a business together as well. I've got Fallen Angel in development with you, of course.
Yeah.
Which is a World War II horror film that kind of starts off as a true story and then goes somewhere else. Nothing like Paratrooper, but it is about German airborne forces. And then I wrote the script for James Boosh's Hex. Big Boosh is I know he loves me calling him that, Big Boosh.
Big Boosh, I love that.
He's a dear friend of mine. He's a really good lad. We love the same movies. I'm gonna do a quick top 10 movie before I go. I'm not gonna go before I do my top 10 movie.
Yeah, cool. I just want to tell everyone, because there are some people chiming in here still. Okay, so very clearly you can go on Facebook and search the Outcasts Theatre Company. It's every Monday after Corona, obviously, when it's safe to do so, at 6:30 at the Courtyard Theatre, and that's an N1 in London. That's so you can get it all on the Outcasts Theatre Company on Facebook.
And just so people know, at the moment you don't have to book, but our classes are maximum of 24 people. Our average attendance, which has been great for the actors that come, has been 12. So I think the highest number we ever had was 18, and average attendance is between 12 to 14, which is great for the people that want to come. But I've been to classes in the past where they get too big.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got 35 people there, and people are all paying the same. They're all paying their 10 quid, but they're not getting the same amount of time. And one of the things that me and Dickens said when we started the Outcasts was we were not going to have favoritism ever, and it's not always going to be the same people getting the big parts in the plays. We're going to share the wealth, and it's the same with the classes. Everybody gets equal time.
Sure.
The classes are a maximum of 24. So if we have a massive deluge of people come down one night, what Dickon and I will do is we'll split the class into two, as long as there's 2 rooms available, and we'll take half each, and then we'll split over. We'll change over halfway.
Mm-hmm.
We might get a booking system where people will have to say I'm coming on the Facebook page, and just to let us know. And the people that have notified us ahead of time will get first dibs. And if it gets over 24, then we'll deal with that when it happens. That's a champagne problem.
Cross that Pegasus Bridge when you come to it. See what I did there? All right. We did talk about this last night. We're going to talk about your top 10 films to close it out, because we've been so this episode now, unfortunately, due to technical issues, we're going to have it over 2 parts. So part 1 and 2, it will release on June 15th at 2 p.m. on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Tunein, all those places, all the major podcast places, as well as on YouTube for the video element of it. And as I said, 2 p.m. on June 15th, we'll launch the official this episode over 2 parts. So to wrap things up, then, my friend, what then? We're going to talk about your top 10 favorite films of all time across all genres, and I believe you do have a couple of DVDs aside here to show us.
Yeah, there was one thing we were going to talk about as well. I don't know if we've got time, whether I should squeeze it in.
Sure.
But I said to you...
Oh, The Wall.
Remember The Wall?
The Wall, yes, I'm curious. Yeah, so let me prompt myself then.
The wall in the industry is the thing that we're all trying to climb up, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a general sort of comment on the industry, and also a piece of advice to everybody watching in general, whether you're an actor, whether you're a filmmaker, whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to make. Because I've been trying to climb that wall for a long time, and I'm still trying to climb it. And I mean, you're always climbing it to a degree, because it's got different levels, and your success is where you perceive it to be.
Absolutely.
Okay? And I don't perceive myself personally to be successful, because if I was, I wouldn't be in the financial shit that I'm in. And my creative side has never been my problem. It's just that you can only do so much on your own, and you need other people to believe in you.
Oh, absolutely.
So, listen, you can be the most talented actor on the planet, right? But if you don't get seen by the right people, you're not going to get offered by the right parts. And what you do is you do everything you can to get yourself noticed, and you're at the bottom of the wall doing this. Look at me, I'm in a fringe play, it's really good. Look at me, I've just got my short film on YouTube. Please look, it's really good. And you're hoping somebody up the wall in a position of influence is going to put their hand down and see you and pull you up. And the people that are on the top of the wall, and I would say that this is probably the the most working 50 actors, let's say, in the UK today. The top 5 agencies in London, I'm not going to say which ones they are, but we all know who they are, you know, the Uniteds and all those of the world. So I've mentioned one of them. What they've all set up now is they've all got their own internal production companies, all of them now. So it's all like the Hollywood system. So you get everybody on your books, you've got your own internal production company, and then you have existing relationships with other production companies. And your objective as an agency, of course it is to make as much money for your board members, your shareholders, and your clients de facto as possible. And the way you do that is by setting up projects for them within your internal production company, so that internal production company goes and gets the funding through your funding contacts from the last project you did, and you then cast as many people on your own agency as you can, and you've got the big names.
Oh, absolutely,
so one of the top 5 agencies, so you've got those names. You can get your project greenlit. You can walk into the room at Sky, Amazon, or Netflix. You can have that meeting. You know, you've got somebody who's as big as Ricky Gervais, who I think is great, by the way. Take my hat off.
Big fan.
I love his work as well. You've got someone on your books who's got that power, who can walk in and get that meeting and get that project seen and potentially get that Gangs of London lit or Game of Thrones lit or whatever. And the money goes out the front door and it comes in the back, right? And that's a bubble. And there's several of those bubbles, and they're all on the top tier of that wall. And the people that are there, really, it's not in their interest to let anybody who's not already making money, it's not really in their interest to look down and pull that person up.
Of course not.
Not only that, within that structure, and I'm not making a blanket statement here, some people, not everybody, within that structure, there's kind of a nepotism as well, where there's people that went to certain drama schools that come from certain families, get represented by the best agent. As soon as they come out, they get seen by the best people, and they get offered the best jobs.
It's who you know, not what you know. I mean, I think that applies across all career paths.
So those of us that are sort of working on the outside of that, and the crowdfunding generation are very much part of the people working on the outside of that. We're all the ones trying to break in, and you know, you do one little project, and then you try and do another one, and you try and get noticed a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. Somebody who's broken through, I think, is Tom Payton, and he's been extremely clever.
Yeah.
About how he's done that, and take my hat off to him as well. He's churned out 7, or he's on his 8th movie now in 5 years or something. I mean, he's worked extremely hard and gone an extremely long way, and he's done it the right way. But you still need somebody at some point who's higher on the wall than you to look down at and say, oh yeah, I like the look of that, or I like the look of that person, or I like the look of that project, or they're talented, and take a chance on you and pull you up. And that's either going to be an agent or a producer or, you know, someone, because you can't do it all on your own. Yeah. And the only way to get noticed by those people up on the wall is to do as much of your own stuff as possible. It's not enough now for actors just to go to auditions and wait for the phone to ring. You have to have, whether you like the internet or whether you hate it. I hate social media personally.
Yeah,
this is why, for all those people watching, there's no Facebook on my phone, there's no Twitter on my phone. I don't even have Skype on my phone. All my social media is all on my PC, okay? Because when I go out, I don't like being on my phone. I like to be out and talk to people and look at things and, you know, watch people, because I'm a writer. I like to watch people. That's how I invent characters. I don't want to be on my phone. My characters are not on my phone, you know? So, but love or hate social media, you've got to be part of it now.
Yeah.
Because that's one way of getting noticed. I mean, Mark Zamet's got, I don't know how many thousands of followers he's got on Twitter or whatever, but that's been incredibly helpful for him in getting all the great reviews he's got for his film on, because he's got a core fan base, and his core fan base went and supported his film screenings, you know, and he's got a half decent film there, and they've gone out and they've been proactive on his behalf, and they've given him good reviews. You need that support.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. 100%.
You're a filmmaker or whether you're an actor. I've got 33 reviews for Diamonds in the Sky on Amazon. 34 of them are 5 out of 5, 5 stars out of 5. That, by the way, is not enough. I need 100. So if you buy the book and you like it, please do a review. But that's a good start. And you can't just whack a book up on Amazon and hope it's going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to know how to do the PR, which I don't. I ain't got a clue how to PR a novel. I can't learn all of these things, and I've got brain damage as well, so I've got trouble with memory retention issues. So I'm already battling my own.
It's really difficult these days because you need. I mean, it's like you say, it's impossible to be the writer or to be the actor, but also then be the marketing person that markets this product, and then be the person to make sure that this person or this product, I'm going to call it this product because you are a product, make sure that you're marketed the right way, that you're seen the right way, that you're doing the right projects, that you go to the right parties, that you be seen with the right people, that your social media, all of them, and there's a bunch, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the various social medias are all kept up to date, and there's a relevant, interesting post on all of them at least once a day. I mean, that you'd be at home all day long, every day, just prepping for that, if that's all you did. And then if Facebook, social media, if Twitter, Instagram, whatever, if these things ever were what they set out to be, which is like, just I put stuff on there. If I'm interesting, people will come to me because they'll be interested in what I'm putting out. If that was ever the case, it no longer is, because Zuckerberg and all these people have monetized it in such a way that if you're not paying for ads, they will actively make sure that your message is not seen by other folks until you pay. Only when you pay, you get the gates are opened essentially, and you're allowed out into the ethos of the internet. And if you don't, it never leaves your page. It might look like it does, but it doesn't.
Yeah, there's a really good friend of mine who, I've never met him, but he's an author of a book series called Surviving the Evacuation. You can look it up on Amazon. And it's a British version of The Walking Dead, and it's a novel series.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought the first one. It's great. I think he's written about 30 of them. And it's an ongoing story, and they're much shorter than the Diamonds in the Sky book. I mean, I formatted my book to be a TV series, so it's got a very specific structure. Mm-hmm. But and his books are great, and they do well, and it's his full-time job, and he makes a living at it. And I said to him, how do you PR your book? What do you do? And he said, I just spend money on Facebook advertising. And I said, how much do you spend? And he told me, and it wasn't a vast sum of money, but it was a vast sum of money to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't afford it at the minute. At the minute, all I can do is I can keep being creative, keep writing projects, keep beavering away. And occasionally I've written scripts up front for people for free. Occasionally. If you don't know me, by the way, then we haven't got an existing friendship. So don't ask me to do that. But but I've done it for people that I've got existing friendships with, sure, who've done me favours.
Uh-huh.
And I would never call on someone to do something for me for free if I haven't already done them a favour, or if I wasn't prepared to do them a favour, like look at their script for free or edit their script for free or write them a short film or whatever. I've done that when people have done stuff for me for nothing. Mm-hmm. And anybody that's done a gig for me for nothing, I would always do that for them because they've done it for me. And there are a lot of people that are prepared to give and take in this industry, and there are some other people who just take.
Yeah, that's for sure.
They're good at pretending that they give, but they don't. They just take.
Jump into the comments really quick. Our good buddy Tony Fidel is online. The Tripod Gang is here. Hey, Ellie. Ellie Torres is watching. She's saying hey. Danny, what's going on, brother? My own cousin, an actor himself. He's on Rosnaruin back home, which is, for those who don't know, it's an Irish language national show back in Ireland. Keir Brannigan, what's going on, love? Let's see who else we got here. We got Donald Doherty, Tom Harris. There's a bunch. Colin McGonigal. Everyone's chiming in. So so that is. And also one thing I wanted to say as well is about the.
If you've got any questions, feel free to chuck them in.
Absolutely, yeah. Bang the questions into the comment section of whichever video player that you happen to be watching us on. We're currently going out live on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, and YouTube, of course. So please drop in there and do give us a comment, chime in, and let us know what you're up to today. Okay, going to get on to your favorite films now, because oh my God, we're nearly in the second hour. We're nearly through. This is good. You weren't too far off the.
I thought we said we were going to 9 o'clock, wasn't it? I'm going to 9 o'clock.
You weren't too far off the mark when you said a 6-hour show at the start. We're pushing on 3 at this point, but it's awesome. I could talk to you all day, man. It's just so. Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to talk about things that I hope will be of use to people, not just rattle on about my own work for forever, which is interesting to a degree, but I'm sure it's very boring for a lot of people.
Well, I think it's interesting for anyone that's in the game, because this is obviously getting insights from people who have been through the process, especially finding money and getting stuff produced. That is probably the most difficult.
There's no single way to do that.
No, there really isn't.
Asking about that question, there is no. This is the definitive way you get a film made. I mean, Nicola Gregory will tell you that, and Nicola and I have worked on a number of projects, not just Pegasus, but we worked on another one called The Accountant that nearly happened and didn't, and we both did a lot of work for that. And you know what, you connect with people in the industry, and you can't do it on your own. And while you're looking for the important guy who's going to notice you up on the wall, what you need to do is you need to connect and have relationships with people who have a similar mentality and ethos for yourself. And don't make it all about you. Do stuff for them. Help them with their projects as well. Make it a quid pro quo thing. Because I've done so much. I really changed a lot of my personal mental attitude towards what I was prepared to do for people and who I was prepared to do it for, probably about 10 years ago. And there were some other people in the industry that I decided I wanted to be different from. I'm not going to say who. And so I have helped a lot of people out. I'm doing a rewrite of a script called The Fire Witch with Daniela Dahui, who's a lovely actress that I met at a screening. And she told me she had a fantasy script. We were just having a casual conversation. I love the genre of fantasy. I've never written a fantasy script. And I said, is it good to go? What stage is it at? Oh, well, I don't know. I'm not sure I want anyone to read it. And I said, well, why don't you let me read it? And then if I think it can be improved, listen, I'll help you with it, because I'd quite like to work on a fantasy script with somebody. So actually, over the last few weeks, we've been doing a rewrite of that, very much with her still as the lead writer, but me just saying, why don't you change this scene to this, and that line doesn't really need to be there, and say less here, less is more here, and so I'm just trying to sort of pass on the benefit of my knowledge, and at the same time I'm learning something too, because I haven't done a fantasy genre script before. My name's not going to be on that script. I think I'm getting a script editor credit, which is fine with me, but it's still useful for me to see someone's work in that genre and work on it with them and improve it and sort of help it flower, kind of thing. So that's just an example of putting it out there and getting it back,
Okay, we're going to jump over here to Twitch. We've got a question for Joshua, who's in Clapham Junction, right here in London. He's saying...
That's where Jason Fleming lives, by the way.
Oh, Jason's down. Oh, that's right. He is in Clapham as well. That's right. Yeah.
I'm stalking though, but that's where he lives.
Well, okay. Sorry. So Joshua, don't stalk Jason if you happen to run into him. Well, Joshua's asking. He's a writer also. He's written a piece that he wants to approach Netflix with. You mentioned a acquisitions person at Netflix earlier, and they're asking, how does one get a project to Netflix?
Oh.
The $6 million question.
The $1 million question. It is $1 million question. There's no point sending any unsolicited material to anyone at Netflix at any level.
Yeah.
Anne Mensah is one of many people who's got their finger on the button. She's not going to read anything of yours, and I'm just being bluntly honest. She's not going to read my script. We didn't send her scripts. We sent her a pitch pack. And the pitch pack didn't go just through me. Jason Fleming had some contacts. He did it as well. And we still haven't got a response. We haven't got a no. We got a no from Amazon, but we didn't get a no from Netflix. And we're just going to leave that there and carry on beavering away and try and get the pilot made. And then when we've got the pilot made, we'll come back with the pilot. There's a lot of different trains of thought about what you should and shouldn't do in terms of trying to get a show made. Some people say go away and make a pilot. Some people go away and write an amazing pilot script, and it depends who you're approaching, and just look at what the advice is online. The BBC, for example, predominantly always want a really cracking pilot script. They don't necessarily want to see a pilot that you've already made. If you've got the resources between you and your mates to go away and make something, or make a concept trailer that's good, there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with having that, as long as it's of the standard that you want the show to be.
Absolutely.
There's no point making it half the standard and saying to the people, well, I kind of want it to be like this, but we didn't have the money to do it properly. Oh, look, I'm talking too much, so I need to slow down. Things come up.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, to go back to Joshua, there isn't, as Lance was saying, there isn't really a definitive way, but acquisitions manager, that's what you want to look out for. Look into who the acquisitions managers are in your region, and they are essentially a middleman between you and Netflix. It's somebody that Netflix trusts, and you have to convince him or her that your project is good enough, and then him or her will take it to Netflix and present it to Netflix on your behalf. That's essentially what they do.
What's the name of the guy again in Clapham that we're talking to?
Oh, Joshua,
just another piece of advice on that, mate. Ever since the platforms went big, Amazon's and all the rest of it, acquisition manager, which is kind of like a middleman, you need to view those people as dodgy car salesmen. I'm just going to be very clear about this, because there's a big black market growing up of people in that who will call themselves that title, and they're not really that. And there are some nice people that are good at that job, and they know what they're doing. And there are plenty of people that will tell you that they've got contacts at Netflix, and if you give me £1,000, I'm going to get you a meeting. Well, do you know what? Have the money ready and pay them when you're in the room. Because don't pay anybody any money up front for anything on the promise of them getting you a meeting with Netflix or Amazon, unless you can speak to 5 other filmmakers that person's got in the room, 5 different filmmakers who don't know each other, who've got projects in development, that are up on IMDb, that can be bona fide. Because somebody who tells you they've got those contacts and has got no track record of success, they are talking bullshit.
Yeah,
they're going to take your money, and you're not going to see it.
Absolutely, but just like agents, no one with any sort of credibility will ask you for money up front. They take a percentage. So if you pitch to them a movie and they take it to Netflix buy it, and you get 10 million, for example, just as a round figure, that's not going to happen, but let's say you did. Well, they get 20% of that. So that's what their cut is.
That's a much better way of it working. I mean, so if you're a writer, presumably the acquisitions guy is going to take a share of your writer's fee.
Yes.
Now, that's not dissimilar to how producers work, and my advice to you would be that fee should be no greater than 3%.
As a producer's fee, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, as a producer's fee, that's industry standard, and as a acquisitions guy, I don't see why it should be any different to that. So maybe some will go higher. Maybe it can go higher if you're getting a higher fee, perhaps. But 3% of a 10 grand writing gig is a small fee, but 10 grand is also not very much. So
yeah,
you're not going to live very long in London on that. Anyway, so yeah. Any other questions before we do the top 10?
Yes. So Danny, my own cousin, he's an actor. He's asking, what do you include in your pitch pack? And just also Himram Hassan, also who I believe is a friend of yours, is saying it's an absolute travesty that you're struggling when you have so much talent. So Danny was asking, what do you include in your pitch pack?
Imran, you're preaching to the converted, mate. I just keep putting it out there, and like I say, there's a couple of people that are on that wall at the moment who are trying really hard to help me. I just do need to say that. One of whom, of course, is my dear friend Jason Fleming, who's gone out of his way to help me with more projects, and also is a tremendous friend and is the sort of person who calls me just to see how I'm doing, And I don't have a lot of people in the industry. I've had a very, very tough time personally in the last couple of years, and I don't have a lot of people in the industry, really true friends, who just call me to see how I'm doing. Are you okay? When they can tell I'm not. And there are people that do that. Jason Fleming's one, Tony Fadil's another one, Nicola Gregory's another one. It's a very small list. It's an industry. Everybody wants to be your mate when you're making something.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. My inbox when we were doing Pegasus and then Paratrooper just got bombarded, and I get that. I get it. I get that's how it works. I'm not expecting these people to be my friends. It's fine. But what I don't like is when people pretend.
Yeah.
Just be honest with me, man.
And there's a whole lot of that, a whole bunch of it. Okay, so we're gonna move on to your top 10 movies. Am I right in thinking of all time? Is that right?
No. What I'm going to do is, unlike James Boosh, I've got a very small Blu-ray collection. James Boosh has got about 50,000 Blu-rays or something.
Are you serious? Really? That many? Wow.
No, he's got a big Blu-ray collection. I've got I think I got about 40. Some of them were given to me, and then I bought a few of my favourite films of all time. This is not my definitive list of favourite films of all time. In fact, I left the Lord of the Rings Blu-ray box set, and that would definitely be in my top 10. These are just 10 films I wanted to recommend that are on my Blu-ray collection. So I've taken a choice from a very small choice, because I have about 3,000 films on DVD. They're all in DJ cases now, because I thought I might be moving before the COVID thing happened.
Oh yeah.
Now of course I can't move, so I got them all packed away and threw away all the boxes. But I do still have a Blu-ray collection. So I sort of said to Jay, what might be interesting was just to recommend 10 films that I think are really great. In fact, I've got 11 here, but I've got 10 on Blu-ray. So I'm going to mention 10, and I'll talk about them briefly, not too long, because I know we've only got until 9 p.m. So these are 10 films I'm going to recommend, and I'm going to just something about history of me with these films as well. So one of my favourite films of all time is The Untouchables.
Oh.
Now, this is directed by Brian De Palma. It was released
Classic.
in the UK in 1987. I saw it at the Empire Leicester Square, the original screen at the Empire Leicester Square. Old school film directors will know what I'm talking about. Brilliant screen, gone now. It's an IMAX now. Still a nice screen, but not quite the same as when they had the laser show and everything. And this film is brilliant in so many ways. I love the period. I love the 1920s, Tommy guns and all that, the period of Prohibition. Robert De Niro is the best Al Capone that there's ever been on celluloid, ever. No one will ever top him. No one's ever wanted to play Al Capone since De Niro did Al Capone in this movie.
Yeah.
It's one of the films that introduced the world to Kevin Costner. It's not the film. In fact, I'm going to mention that one in a minute. But it's a really good film. So for those millennials, the younger actors that haven't seen it, watch The Untouchables. It's a fantastic movie.
Sean Connery, right? That's a great one, yeah.
Sean Connery, Andy Garcia, very young Andy Garcia. It's got two of the best action scenes, two of the best gunfight action scenes in a movie you'll ever see. One on a staircase that's kind of a nod to Battleship Potemkin with this baby's pram going down. And then there's a second one where they ride on horses, which is a clip I'm always showing in my movie quizzes at Christmas. And just a fantastic film. You've seen it, I take it, Jay?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Years and years and years ago. It's classic. Sean Connery plays an old New York cop, getting chased through those stairwells, being shot at by...
How many of these Jay has seen? That's another fantastic scene. So a more recent one, which I'm sure most millennials will have seen, but I'm going to mention it because I loved it. I saw it at the cinema, and it was a very... I haven't seen that many films at the cinema for the last 3-4 years because I just can't afford to go. But Sicario.
Oh, dude.
Definitely one of my favourite.
Dan Villeneuve. That is my favourite movie, I think, of the last 5 years.
Well, it was... I always have a favourite movie of the year. And was this 2016? The year this came out.
Yeah,
was my
16. Yeah, I mean, I was blown away by that movie. I mean, I thought it was just wonderful. Benicio del Toro is one of my favourite actors. Dan Villeneuve, amazing. Emily Blunt is wonderful, as always.
Yeah, I really like this director. It's one of those movies that's massively different on the big screen, and that's because Roger Deakins, who's the DOP, is one of the best DOPs of all time. He shoots his movies for the cinema.
Absolutely.
Not everybody has that mentality now because they're all thinking, I'm shooting this for Netflix, so they're not always thinking with the cinema lens. Roger Deakins, who's an incredible DOP. He's one of my 100 Letters people, by the way. I'm not going to get
Yeah,
to work.
I mentioned him last night to you when we were
He's
talking.
fully booked. I'm not going to get to work with him in my lifetime, which is maybe another 20 years. But he's someone I want to give a nod to. I will watch films just because he's the DOP.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He's done some great, like Prisoners is him, and
This was really good. There was a sequel to this as well. And actually, the sequel wasn't bad.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good.
I quite enjoyed the sequel.
It wasn't Dan Villeneuve, though. It wasn't Dan.
No, it felt like half a movie. It felt like it was building and building and building, and then the climax kind of didn't happen. And but I still enjoyed it. It was not a bad film.
No.
But this was just an astounding piece of work. And
the set pieces in that was amazing.
I was just the whole way in the cinema. I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. The specifically the set pieces where they do those black SUVs driving across the California border into Mexico.
And I love the scene where the guy goes, "Come on the roof, I want to show you something."
Oh yeah. And
suddenly see all the gunfights taking place over the border because the king has been deposed.
Yeah.
Live the king, and now there's a fight for who's going to be next in. And
such a good
Roger
movie.
Deakins' photography, nighttime photography, were very well done with some special effects added in, but just a brilliant movie. Another one of my all-time favourites, which again is another amazing one on the big screen, and when I can afford it, what I did for my birthday about 20 years ago actually, and I'd done it twice, was I hired out a cinema. And I just told everybody to turn up at the Curzon at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, which was the only time I could afford to hire a cinema out. I got it for 200 quid. This was in 1998, the summer of 98. And I showed a favourite film of mine of all time, which I don't have here because I haven't got it on Blu-ray. But and I intend to do that when I can afford it, when I get a big gig and I get a big paycheck, whenever that may be. When I have another birthday party, part of that birthday party, the morning part, will be a surprise film. And one of the films that might be, because it will be an older film that maybe people haven't seen on the big screen, it might be The Untouchables. Another one that it might be The Last of the Mohicans.
Oh, God, Daniel Day-Lewis, another cracker.
I mean, he's a phenomenal actor. And we could talk about how phenomenal he is, not just as an actor, but I think as a human being. I think he's quite a special human being.
I agree.
But this is Michael Mann, who's another director whose films I love. I don't have a Blu-ray of Heat. If I did have a Blu-ray of Heat, I'd be holding it. Heat was another film I saw for my birthday, and I took 20 people to see it at the cinema for my birthday. And I just thought the build-up to that battle. There was a lot of people at the time said, "Oh, Heat was boring for 2 hours, nothing happened." If you didn't have the 2 hours building up to that big confrontation, you wouldn't have the stakes.
Yeah.
You're so invested in the characters on both sides, and Michael Mann understood that, and he needed a long journey to get the people there. Plus, I mean, what's not to love? Watching Pacino and De Niro act on screen, I can watch them in a 9-hour movie.
I know.
Everybody moaned about how long The Irishman was. I don't care. I can pause it. Welcome to the wonders of modern technology. Hit the pause and go and put on a cup of tea. Yep. We don't need to worry about that shit now. But anyway, Last of the Mohicans, some of the best cinematography you're going to ever see. It's got some amazingly complex choreographed action scenes. The siege of the fort, the Glen ambush where all the guns open up. I mean, on the big screen, that was just an amazing experience. Another film that I'm going to talk about that I wish I'd seen on the big screen, but I didn't. I saw it on the small screen, and I put it on very, very late at night, thinking it was going to be mediocre. And I put it on at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was about to go to bed, and before I knew it, I was up until 4:30. It was so gripping, and it's the kind of movie I want to make because I'm very interested in true story drama. So it's not the only thing I like. It's not the only thing I'm interested in doing, but anyway, it was this Patriots Day. Now, this is Peter
fantastic.
Berg, and Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg, they collaborate a lot. They've done Lone Survivor together. They've done...
Which I actually thought was wonderful. I thought that was a great movie, Lone Survivor.
I do have the Blu-ray of that. It's one I didn't pick up. I thought I could talk more about Lone Survivor, which was a very good film. Not how accurate it was, but it was a very well made.
It was
film.
the visceralness of it that really got me. When I felt like I was there with the soldiers being shot at.
Breaking of the bones.
Oh, yeah.
This one of the reasons I really like this is because Kevin Bacon is in it. I love Kevin Bacon. I would give my right arm to work with Kevin Bacon.
Big fan too, yeah.
Said on Twitter I was going to give Bacon a shout out, and I will. But this is a very, very well-made film about a true event, and it's pretty. Although Mark Wahlberg plays a fictional amalgamation of several characters, it's very close to what happened. They shot at the real locations where they could. Extremely well done, and Peter Berg, he knows his craft really well. You might not agree with his politics, and I think a lot of his stuff is, kind of in the Republican political sphere.
Yeah,
I don't mind that. All I care about is, does he tell a good story and tell it well? And his films, I always know if I watch one of his films, I'm going to be gripped and I'm going to be interested. And I thought The Kingdom was a very good movie that he made. The Kingdom, if you've seen The Kingdom.
Yeah.
He really knows how to shoot action. He's a great action director. He shoots good action. We're not talking Michael Bay, Transformers, who the fuck is firing at who? I can't tell what's going on. This is so complicated. He knows, he understands the geography of a battle. Like you said in Lone Survivor, you really know where you are. And when we were shooting the battle scene for Paratrooper, I was very conscious of making the audience know where they are in the geography of the battle, and that's something when Cornell's running around, we're going to be very conscious to make sure the audience understand it. Peter Berg is an expert at doing that.
Absolutely.
Talking about Kevin Costner's first, Silverado.
Silverado. I thought you were going to put up Waterworld. I was about to cut you off. So.
Let's not talk about Waterworld. Not a bad film.
I thought it was okay. Silverado. So this is the first one that you put up so far that I haven't seen. I don't know this one. What is this?
Didn't you say you were going to take off your beanie if I put up a film that you hadn't seen? So Silverado.
Nobody wants to see that.
Was an attempt at reinvigorating the westerns by Lawrence Kasdan. It came out in 1985.
Okay.
It was one of the first films I saw in the West End. I saw it at the Odeon West End Cinema, which is not there anymore. It's been demolished. That was the one that got split into two screens, and they're now building a hotel there. Phenomenal film with incredible sound. It was one of the first films to use THX, not the first, but it was one of the first. It's a really good Western, and it's a great Western for people that don't like Westerns because it's very accessible. It's got good female characters in it, which are usually a bit absent in a Western. The four leads, of course, Kevin Kline. I love Kevin Kline.
Big fan, yeah.
I met him at the stage door when I went to see Brian Dennehy in Death of a Salesman, and I got to chat to him when he was coming out, and I said, you've no idea how big a fan I am of Silverado. The set for Silverado is still there, and it still exists on this range. You can look at it on Google Earth, and they've expanded it. It's been used in films like Tombstone and various other, but it's a great movie, fantastic score, really good music score by a composer called Bruce Brofton, who did Young Sherlock Holmes, which is another vinyl soundtrack that I've got. I've got the vinyl soundtrack to this. This is a great film, really well choreographed action scenes, great characters, just a really good story, a very good moral compass. This next one I'm going to mention because it was one of the last films of one of my favorite actors of all time, very gripping movie. I love Alan Rickman in this movie.
Dude, Eye in the Sky. I thought that was so powerful. And Aaron Paul, who I know quite a bit, actually, is in that film too. I thought that was really...
Yeah, he's the drone pilot in it, isn't he?
He is, yeah, he is, yeah. And
if you buy Diamonds in the Sky, if you buy my book Diamonds in the Sky, there's a character in it called General Spears, who's like the British military advisor to the alien invasion to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's this cocaine-snorting, repressed homosexual, brilliant character. He's so funny.
So a Rickman-esque then for, not the Prime Minister now, but the character in your book is Rickman-esque.
The character in the book is based on the general. He's called General Spears. Is based on Alan Rickman's portrayal of the British military guy in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was absolutely wonderful, that film.
When I saw this, I was already writing Diamonds in the Sky, and I was sort of toying around with this British military character because I knew he needed to be quite formidable. and I thought, who can I base him on? And I can't think of a character or an actor who's right. And then I saw Alan Rickman's portrayal in this, and I went, that's him. That's General Spears. But not only that, it's just a fantastic movie. It's a great little movie. It's a very good moral dichotomy.
Yeah.
Modern warfare politic, and I think it's one of those films where you watch it. I saw it at the cinema actually, and you're asking yourself some difficult questions.
Oh, absolutely. Helen Mirren's wonderful in it also, by the way. Yeah, the whole cast are actually, they're really good.
This is another one by one of my favorite directors that didn't do that well, and a lot of people thought it wasn't that great. I watched it at the cinema. I thought it was a great experience. I loved it. That's Elysium.
Oh yeah, Matt Damon. Yeah.
By the director of District 9. He's that director who also did Chappie, which is another underrated film that I really enjoyed. He's a really great storyteller. He has fantastic characters. I like the fact that
wasn't that Dave Patel was in Chappie? He was the guy, the kid, the Indian kid.
I believe he was.
Yeah.
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 And,
the South African.
That's right.
People.
And the South African actor that he uses in all of his movies, who was an unknown. Despite the fact that this director is loyal to his unknown cast members in his first film, and he promotes them and he brings them along in his next movie. There's a lot of people that don't do that. They forget about the people that help them. And that actor, he's got a funny name, the South African actor. I've got my contacts in, so I can't read the text on here because I don't have my glasses. He's called something like Skylo Chopley or Shalito Chopley, something like that. He's an amazing actor, and this guy discovered him, and he's in all of his movies. But Elysium with Matt Damon is a really interesting moral dichotomy, which is also one of the moral dichotomies in Diamonds in the Sky, and I'm going to leave that there without too many spoilers. I really like this movie. Jodie Foster's very good in it as well. It's nice to see her play a villain. It's a perfect film, but I really liked it. And remember, I've only got 50 Blu-rays, so this isn't my definitive top 10 of all time. It's the 10 films I'm recommending from my Blu-ray collection, which is a very small collection. I've got 3,000 DVDs. Second from last, my favourite military film of all time, Richard Attenborough's A Bridge Too Far.
Bridge Too Far, of course.
If you think Saving Private Ryan was the first movie to say that war sucked, that's bullshit. There were a couple of movies that did that way before Saving Private Ryan, Platoon being one of them. But the first World War II movie that really said that was this, Bridge Too Far. It's a huge historical epic. A lot of millennial actors that I meet have not seen it. If you're going to watch it on the biggest telly you can. Don't watch it on your fucking iPhone, for Christ's sake. That's a travesty. Watch it on a big screen with a proper sound system. It's got an amazing cast of all the Hollywood greats from the 70s. A lot of British actors too. You've got Gene Hackman, Dirk Bogarde, Robert Redford, Anthony Hopkins, Sean Connery.
All the heavyweights then. All the heavyweights.
And Hardy Kruger, Maximilian Schell, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago, great German actors. And it's the true story of one of the biggest airborne operations of World War II, which was Bernard Montgomery, kind of a vanity project for him that all went horribly wrong. And it's a very, very moving piece. It's got an incredibly good music score written by a guy who was actually there in a tank,
Wow.
a composer called John Addison, I believe his name was. And he was actually there. It's a phenomenal piece of filmmaking. It's shot in a very traditional way. It's not going to get a lot of kind of Steadicam shit. There wasn't a lot of use of Steadicam back in the 70s. This was made in 76. So it's shot in a very traditional way. But Richard Attenborough, when people talk about his best films, they always mention Cry Freedom, which is an amazing film, by the way. I still think Bridge Too Far is his best film because it was such a complicated movie to make. And they made it at a time when war movies were not popular. This was made at the height of the Vietnam War. So I think the war was just ending. And then my last... Just
before you go on to the next one, A Thin Red Line as well is another really, really good war film.
That's a good anti-war film.
Yeah.
And it's a strange one. And you read the stories about what went on behind the making of that. Like Sean Penn had a massive role in that movie, which was a huge speech, which was completely cut.
Why?
And it's the style of the director. The director who made Thin Red Line is quite an unusual fellow, and the actors would often complain that they would spend ages rehearsing and performing these scenes, and during the filming of the scenes, he would take the camera and he'd film something completely different out of shot.
He just go, nah, fuck it, over here's more interesting.
I don't think he was being as blasé as that. He was trying to sort of, with the Thin Red Line, the director's really trying to show the impact of war on the environment and how the environment and the landscape of where the people are fighting, which I think is in the Pacific campaign on these islands, really shapes and defines the nature of the human conflict, and then how the human conflict impacts and shapes the design and nature of the environment. Sounds very existential, but that's the kind of guy he is. So he likes looking at the humans and then taking the camera off the humans and showing the tree and showing how the tree fits into that scene. Now, that's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's good that there are filmmakers out there like that, which that we'll talk about a filmmaker that I particularly like, who has his own way of doing things in a second. Because cinema would be a lot less interesting. The Thin Red Line would not be the film that it is if he wasn't that kind of guy. It would have been another standard war film. It would have been a good war film, but it would have been a Pacific version of A Bridge Too Far. It's not a Pacific version of A Bridge Too Far. It's a very, very different kind of war movie. Just like Apocalypse Now is another war movie that's a very different kind of surreal.
Oh, absolutely. That one is, yeah, for sure.
I mean, and partly because everybody was so off their face on drugs when they were making it, I think. But
could be it too, yeah.
Allegedly,
yeah, we must put that in there. Allegedly. Okay, and that brings us on to numero uno.
I've got two left, actually. There's
2.
10.
Okay.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind, one of the few films I've got on Blu-ray of Spielberg.
Yeah.
What I like about this box set is it's got all the different versions. So
really,
there's 4 versions of Close Encounters. There's the one that was originally released, and then there was the edit that was originally released, but then with the ending tacked on, where you got to see inside the spaceship. Then they did an anniversary re-release where Spielberg mucked about with the edit a bit and cut some of the earlier stuff and brought in some other footage that we hadn't seen before. And then they did another definitive director's cut, which has some bits and some other bits, and then they took out the ending with the going inside the spaceship. So I think this has 3 of those 4 versions on it, and I've got the 4th version on another DVD.
Okay.
My last one, and I'm kind of, in some ways, I'm leaving one of the best to last, which I think it was a complete travesty. That this
Jimmy Bush just chimed in here. He's saying this. Terrence Malick is who we're talking about.
Yeah, Terrence Malick. Thank you, Jimmy, because as you know, with my memory, I'm shit with names and I can't read the back of the boxes because I've got my contacts in. So the last film on the Blu-ray, I've got a DVD here, which I'll just give a quick plug to. Spinal Tap, brilliant comedy, best comedy of all time.
Classic.
That's all we need to say about that.
Yeah.
But my last Blu-ray, I personally think that this was overlooked at the Oscars, and I think part of the reason it was overlooked at the Oscars was not because it lost out to a film that was better than it on every level. I think that it was down to the divisive nature of the way Hollywood works and how there are camps within Hollywood, and we all know that goes on. But I felt that this really was this director's time, and I thought it was a travesty that he wasn't honoured. So I'm going to say now, he's not going to watch this. Maybe he will one day. Who knows? Tag him in it. Because I've met him a couple of times. I met him at the very first screening in the UK of his very first movie, and I met him at the very first UK screening of his second movie, and that's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, Quentin.
Now, this film divided a lot of people. I know a lot of people thought it was boring, and I get why they thought it was boring. I'm not going to sit here and argue with those people that didn't.
Swings and roundabouts, though. Swings and roundabouts.
It all depends on what you want from a film. Now, if you're interested in Hollywood as a place generally, which, let's face it, if you're in the film industry, that's probably pretty likely. So it ticks that box for me. If you're interested in the diverse and disruptive nature of what goes on behind the scenes in Hollywood, and looking at the microcosm of different characters and how they fitted into that era. And I love that era.
Mm-hmm.
So ticks that box. If you like stories about friendship, particularly friendship between two guys, because I've never had a brother and I've always wanted a brother in my life, and I never had a brother. So strong friendships between two male characters are always something that interests me, and that is what is at the heart of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Is really about the friendship between two fading people, a fading actor and a fading stunt guy.
Absolutely, but I will add one thing to that as well. From someone who has spent a hell of a lot of time in Hollywood, I pretty much grew up there. It is like a love letter to Hollywood. If you know that city, and if you know the little minute, just the little idiosyncrasies of that place, you're watching the movie. And I mean, I was watching it with a friend who's not American or from there or even been there, and I was getting little bits, like little twings and twangs here and there that this person wasn't getting.
I lived there for 3 months in, I think it was, I don't know, early 2000s or something. I can't remember when it was. I lived there a while back, and I've been there a few times on holidays and whatnot. And it's a strange place, and it's got a very different dynamic.
Oh, absolutely.
If you live there as opposed to visiting.
That's for sure.
Visiting is one thing. Living there is something completely different. And love it or hate it, and I've got to say, I don't personally want to live there. It is his love letter to the time, and it's his way of giving Hollywood the ending that they would have wanted that decade to have, as opposed to the ending that decade got.
Mm-hmm.
The ending that decade got was the Manson family murders.
Yeah.
If Quentin could have gone back in his time machine, he would have said, well, what I'm doing is I'm putting these two cool guys who were really on their way out, but suddenly did this really cool thing. And you kind of know at the end of the movie that DiCaprio, because of what happened, you know that DiCaprio's character's career is no longer ending. And I'll tell you now, I would quite happily sit through another 3-hour movie of those two characters in the 80s, and I'd sit through another 3-hour movie of those two characters in the 90s. And I know he says he's only going to make 2 more films. Quentin, why? You're such a fucking amazing filmmaker. And look, I don't love every film he's made, but
no,
they're all interesting. He has not made a boring movie. Anyone who says his films are boring, that's nonsense.
Not boring. I wouldn't say boring for sure. I mean, there's 2, and one will definitely not be a popular opinion. I'm not a fan of, and the other one I think people might actually agree with me on. Death Proof is the first one I really disliked, with Kirk Douglas and Lucy Liu and
one half of the Grindhouse. Thing. Kurt Russell, not
Kurt Russell. Sorry, not Kurt Douglas. Yeah. And the other one. So I think most people.
It's a bit old to be driving cars around.
I know, right? Most people will go, whatever on that one. I think this next one though is gonna have the daggers out, and that is Kill Bill. Really not a fan.
Woohoo! That is a controversial.
I know. I tried to watch it a couple of times, but then don't get me wrong, I am a massive Quentin fan. I adore, his other projects. The one Django I thought was wonderful. I did
a Quentin after I watched.
What was the one he done in the cabin after Django?
And that was Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight. I thought that was great. That was a play on television, basically.
It's a play. Hateful Eight. It does feel like a play. I'd love to do that as a play on stage. I basically, and he says he wants to do theatre. Quentin, you should definitely do theatre. Go and do several plays, mate.
Did you know there's a quick little anecdote or little inside story, I suppose. Don't know why I'm saying inside. I wasn't on that film, but anyway, there's a part in the film where it's Kurt again, isn't it? It is Kurt, yeah. Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, he's the bailiff in this movie, and the woman that he's got that he has captive, he's treating her very, very appallingly, and she has a guitar at a point in the movie, and she's playing a song to Christoph Waltz and to the other characters, and what was meant to happen was Kurt was meant to grab the guitar and do what we seen in the movie, which is bash it off the big pillar and destroy it.
Yeah.
But there was meant to be a very quick cut there, because that guitar came from the Smithsonian. That is the original Martin guitar.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah. Now the Smithsonian no longer gives props to any movie maker of any caliber, because that guitar is literally irreplaceable. It is the very first ever Martin guitar from like 1600 and some shit.
Did it get destroyed?
Oh, obliterated. Pieces. Like, poof,
Right.
obliterated. You know what I mean? Like, just like little pieces of guitar everywhere.
I imagine Quentin made a very generous donation to the Smithsonian Museum.
But you can if you watch the film, you can see, look at when that scene's happening. Don't look at Kurt and don't look at the lady. Can't remember her name. It's Frances McDormand, I think.
Jennifer Jason
Lee. Sorry, I knew it was the other one. Yeah, okay. Jennifer Jason Lee. So don't look at Kurt or Jennifer. Look at the other characters, and you can see them, particularly Christoph, going, "Oh fuck."
I will.
Yeah,
I've not watched that clip, knowing that, so I need to do that. She's a very underrated actress.
Absolutely, and Frances McDormand as well.
Oh, Frances McDormand's not underrated. I think everybody knows.
She's amazing. Yeah, maybe underrated is a wrong terminology, but I think she's underused. Maybe that's the right way to put her. I mean,
Three Billboards, she was incredible. But
unreal.
I've followed her career since she was in Mississippi Burning.
Oh, another cracking movie. Who was she in Mississippi Burning? I don't remember her in that.
Wife of the deputy sheriff, who's played by the guy James Bush will know the actor's name. The guy who played one of the Mentats in June, in David Lynch's June.
Oh, yeah.
He's a funny looking actor. He always plays, if you look on the comments, I'm sure James Bush will chip in. I'm not going to cheat and jump on IMDb. But
if anyone in the comments know who we're talking about, do chime in.
Brad Dourif.
Okay, yeah.
Dourif plays the racist deputy. In fact, she might even be married to him. I seem to recall they might be married. I'm not sure.
What, for real or in the movie?
No, I think for real. I think Frances McDormand is definitely married to an actor, and I've got a feeling it's him, but I might be wrong. Francis, if you're not married to Brad Dourif, I'm sorry about that, and he may be available. I don't know. But anyway, she's phenomenal in Mississippi Burning, and I think she got nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress on that role alone, and she only had 3 scenes. I can't remember if she won it, but she definitely got nominated. And I'd never seen her in anything before that, and after that, anything that she was in, I watched.
Yeah, and just to go back on one of your previous DVDs, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, of course, Frances is she's the narrator of that movie. She's the voice.
Oh yeah, so she is.
Yeah.
But she's not in it though. Is
No,
she?
not at all. You never see her, but she narrates the whole film from start to end.
I mean, one of the things I really love about Quentin as well, because like he's a nostalgia guy, and he loves all his shows from a certain period, and he's older than me, so I think he's in his late 50s now. I'm the same, but of my generation. So there's a lot of actors. For example, there's a wonderful actor called Hugh Ross who's on my friends list, who's an older actor. I think he just had his 70th birthday, and he was in a film called An Ungentlemanly Act, and I saw him in a play at the National a couple of times. He's an actor I still haven't worked with yet, who I'd love to work with. And I've got this list of all these actors, and they're not the most famous people. Like, not everybody's going to have heard of Hugh Ross. Anyone in the industry will know who he is, but the Joe Bloggs on the pavement. In the same way that everybody had forgotten who Robert Foster was, who did big movies back in the day like Alligator and Black Hole. And Robert Foster tells this very famous story about how he used to go and sit in Denny's and just read magazines or whatever, because he had nothing else to do when he was in his 50s. And the resurrection of his career, as well as the lady who played Jackie Brown, was entirely down to Quentin tracking them down and saying, I saw your work when I was younger. I know you're good. I've got a role for you now. What are you up to? This is why I always write roles for people like Danny Webb, who's currently surfing somewhere down in Cornwall. Well, he probably isn't surfing, but he's down in Cornwall on the lockdown. He's a phenomenal actor. He's great. Yeah. In his own words, he feels he hit a glass ceiling in his 40s, and he never kind of went, I think, to the level he wanted to be. I think he's amazing. I would work with him in anything. I wrote a role for him in Behind Closed Doors. He's doing that as well. and these are all people that I want to give big jobs to when I've got a £9 million, £10 million film. These will all be the first people I will go back to and offer jobs to, good, well-paid jobs, because they all did me favours and they all came and saw my work that's what I used to do. That's how I met a lot of people, was when I had a play on, and I've directed 14 plays now. I think it's 13 or 14. Every time I got a play on, I'll write to about 50 actors and try and get some of them to come. I did that with Borderlands, and only one came. And I did it with The Journey. When I had the premiere of The Journey, we had 50 guest tickets kept aside. 45 of them were confirmed. And do you know how many of those tickets got used on the day of the premiere? 5.
Wow.
And that was for critics, actors, reviewers, bloggers, blah, blah. And it was 3 or 4 critics, and I think 2 people came from Jimmy Akambola's guys, Triforce. 2 guys from Triforce came down. All the other people didn't turn up. And not only did they not turn up, they didn't even have the courtesy to tell me they weren't coming. So we had 40-odd tickets at the Journey premiere that we could have sold, but because I sold out 400 tickets in 48 hours,
I feel your pain, brother. Running big events as well, it's you can never rely on the media until you can rely on them. You know what I mean? Once you are at a certain point, they come to you. Before that, you got to chase them and hope for the best.
I'm going to mention, we haven't talked about TV shows. I know. If we started, what am I watching at the moment? We'll be here another hour, so I won't do that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give a plug to 2 of my favourite TV shows of all time. They're both in the same genre, and they are The Shield and Bra Quo. And I've been rewatching the entire series of The Shield since the beginning, because I'm writing something in a cop genre now for the first time ever. And Bra Quo is like a French version of...
Yeah, I'm actually working with the director of that right now, currently. We're in conversation, to do a French TV series. I think I might have told you that, but it's called City à la City, or City to City.
Tell me about that, but I didn't put it together. It's the same guy behind this.
So the director of that is going to direct episode 2 through 10 of this series, and we have somebody else in mind. I can't say who, but you know who it is. Jason's worked with him on a number of his projects at the start. Is going to direct. You know who I'm talking about, but don't say. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, the first one, and Oh Merci, the French actor from.
I've got all of them. I've got all 4 seasons.
Oh, nice.
Around somewhere, and I've got all 7 seasons of The Shield here. And I mean, a lot of people don't realise, but one of the guest writers at the beginning of The Shield was a guy called Kurt Sutter, and by the end of The Shield, he was the lead writer. And The Shield was one of those shows. I know everybody talks about The Wire, but I thought The Shield was better because it was more. It was the Wire was a slow burn, and I loved The Wire. Wire was amazing, and it was very clever, and I liked the difference. Each season was a different demographic, but what was good about The Shield was every episode ended on a cliffhanger, and I needed to see the next one immediately, and I loved the writing of that. And Kurt Sutter, who then of course went on to produce Sons of Anarchy, and he got Sons of Anarchy greenlit off the back of the tremendous work that he did on the Shield. Every episode of Sons of Anarchy, whether you like or don't like Sons of Anarchy, really depends on whether you want to embrace yourself with that world of the bikers and the criminality. But amazing show, ends on a cliffhanger. I got through box sets because I started renting it when there were still video stores. I started watching Sons of Anarchy. I was renting the DVD box set. I was going down to the shop and renting season 1. The next day I was back to get season 2 because I'd been up until 4 o'clock in the morning. Watching, I've just got to put on one more. Oh no! What a cliffhanger! I've got to put on another one. It's 5 o'clock now.
It's one of those binge-worthy programs where you just slam it in one after another until you just can't, until your brain can't take in what's happening anymore, and you're like, I gotta sleep.
They're not my only favourite TV shows, and I don't just watch cop shows. I love stuff like The Crown, and I like Afterlife. I like Westworld. Well, I like the first season of Westworld. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
And I like the first 5-6 seasons of Game of Thrones. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
but some of the best television ever made on the first 5 or 6 seasons.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But there's a lot. I love just good written drama with characters who you believe in the world and you wanna follow them on that journey. And as long as you don't break the rules of the world you create, which I think is a very strong, important lesson as a writer, I'm with them and I'll watch it right till the end.
Mm-hmm.
But once we start getting invisible cars and people surfing off of ice floes in a James Bond movie, that's when Bond has kind of gone a bit too. And I think they knew that when they did that film. Pierce Brosnan's weakest film, I think, and I like Brosnan as a Bond. I think it was an amazing Bond.
So do I agree. Yeah, when he was sliding about in the ice lake, that one.
Yeah, the ice lake car chase didn't bother me so much. It was more when he paraglided off the falling ice floe into the water and then surfed off of the and the CGI on it's really bad. And he also had an invisible car, and you kind of, I know Bond is Bond and it's a silly world, but you kind of still wanna as an audience member, you still wanna kind of believe that Bond is kind of out there somewhere doing this.
Yeah.
And that you're on the ride, but you believe the ride. And
I mean, it's a bit fantastical, but the guy's a spy. He's MI6. That's not a superhero. Yeah. That exists.
Yeah. So once we start getting into invisible cars and just silly things that just are nonsense.
Yeah.
Then it loses my interest a bit. And don't get me wrong, I'm completely there with them skiing off of the mountaintop in The Spy Who Loved Me. But don't forget, in The Spy Who Loved Me, that stunt was done for real.
Mm-hmm.
It was done for real, and it was done for, I think it was 75 grand.
All practical effects back in the day. There was very little CG, and anything that was hugely expensive. So most things were practical effects.
What an amazing set in that film. The inside of the oil tanker when all the submarine crews break out. One of the best action scenes shot in a feature film ever. The director sadly passed away. His passing was one of the things that made me want to do the 100 letters. Was I went to write to him and I found his agent, and he died 2 weeks earlier. And I was like, oh shit, why didn't I write to this guy sooner? And I thought, you know what, I need to make a list of people I want to write to, because if I don't write to some of them soon, they're not going to be around. And I just really want to write to them. Lewis Gilbert was the name of that director, Lewis Gilbert. And he'd been around a really long time, lived until he was about 96.
Wow.
So even if he had got my letter, I'm not sure he might have had a magnifying glass.
Might not have been fit to read it at that point.
So, is there any questions in the chat stream before I go?
We're gonna wrap it up now because we're cracking on to the third hour. Let's just have a little look. See, so if you do want to get one last question in before we wrap it up in the next minute or two, please do so. Excuse me, got a dry throat. We're live, of course, on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and I think it said YouTube. Of course, this episode will be edited and will be put out on all the major platforms. So the podcast platforms, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, etc. And that'll be available 2 p.m. GMT, that's London, UK time, on June 15th. Okay, we got one question from Abigail, and she's chiming in here via the LinkedIn feed, and she's asking, where can we see some of your work, and is there anything on any of the relevant players that we could watch now?
Okay, so the feature film The Journey, which is the movie that I shot a couple of years ago, this is the Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
That is currently, just before the COVID thing happened, we were talking to a couple. I had quite a few offers to distribute that film, and all of them seemed like I wasn't going to get any money. And I put all of my savings into that film, and I thought, unless I've got a contract, especially after what happened with some other experiences or on other productions, I thought I can't just give this film up and let somebody go and make some money on it. and that's why you haven't seen it in the supermarket or whatever. So that I've done 3 feature films, but the other 2 were shot pre-digital era.
Mm-hmm.
So the quality of them is so low they won't even transfer properly to digital. One of them was shot on high 8, and I think the other one was shot on SVHS, and they're not films I'm proud of the fact that I did them, and I'm proud of the work that everybody did on them, but they're not films I can honestly put my hand on heart and say I'm proud of them as a filmmaker. I mean, even The Journey, you know, if I was to review it myself on IMDb, I'd probably give it a 6 or 7 out of 10, because there's a lot of things about it I'm not happy with. You know, you never have enough time, you never have enough money.
But then isn't that always the case? I mean, if you had $200 million and Tom Hanks to work with, you'd probably still not be happy at the end of the day. There's always something you go, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that.
I think if we had $200 million, my DOP would not have needed to crawl into a skylight to rescue a park keeper who'd been mugged on the head and had their head smashed open by a spade and was bleeding profusely, whose life we basically saved during one of our film shoots in Highgate, which meant that we then had to speak to the police, which meant that the 16 shots we were going to do that day in 5 hours then had to be done in, I think it was 70 minutes. And some of those shots are near the beginning of the movie, and I hate those shots. They're all awful. The DOP that was on that day hates those shots. You know, but that was the last day of filming, by the way. What were we going to do? Let the guy bleed to death? You know.
Of course. I mean, of course.
So and then we had no more days after that. We had no more money. I couldn't put any more money in the film. I didn't have any left, and I was already in debt. The credit card was already creeping up to where it is now, and so you know. But it is a film that I can look at and say there are a lot of good things about it. There are some amazing performances. It's got a really beautiful score. It's got you know, some lovely photography. Some of my direction in it is good. Some of it I failed the actors on a couple of scenes, and I could have done a better job. And you know, these are all things in hindsight. I'm quite critical of my own stuff. The Borderlands.
It's quite refreshing, actually, to for you to give such a candid and honest review of your own movie. You know, most people will go, "Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's wonderful. Go buy it."
Listen, I think the film is very watchable, and I think people will get something out of it. And it's a particular type of film, and I'm not saying don't watch it. There are beautiful performances in it. Duncan Powell, who plays one of the leads, is amazing. Jason Fleming, of course, is in there. You've got my friend Dickon Tolson, who gives a very good performance, and Lindsay Colson, who's another good friend of mine. Some great performances. And if you've been through grief, it's a film all about healing. And it's the whole reason I made the film was to make people feel better who've been through a bad time. So I'm kind of annoyed that it's not out there and it's not accessible, because there's nothing wrong with the quality of the film. I am debating cutting about 15 minutes from it. That's gone back and forth, but the problem is I don't have it on the edit suite anymore. That's all gone. So it would take another computer and a RAID and a lot of time that I don't have to reconstruct the edit as it was and then regrade the film and cut it. So I'd have to make very sharp, specific cuts where the existing high def version of it will still work with those cuts in.
Gotcha.
And make sure there's no rescoring or anything like that, and needs to be done. And we're looking at that. And me and Alex Tabrizi, who sort of works on a lot of my projects with me, it's something we're looking at the minute, and seeing if the film still works with those cuts. But the film will come out. It will come out at some point. I mean, if I have to put it out for free in the end, then that's what I'll do. But you know, at the end of the day, we're all in this business to try and actually make a living. Hasn't happened for me yet, but I'm still plucking away. I said to you, if I ever wrote a biography, and I don't think I will, but if I ever wrote a biography, the title of it would be "Learn from My Mistakes."
Yeah, I like that title. I really like it.
I've made so many mistakes, but you'll learn a lot more from someone who's made a lot of mistakes than you will from being taught by someone who's had an easy road to success. Because an easy road to success is usually what's known as just a bit of pot luck. You know, you happen to be in the right place, the right party, at the right time, spoke to the right guy or girl who happened to do this or happened to know that person, and boom, suddenly you got a thing financed, and you know, you had good circumstances, and boom, you're off. But a person who has a success story like that doesn't really have a lot to teach you, as opposed to someone who's tried a million different ways to get something to work and has learned how to try a different way or not go that route. And I'm always trying to pass advice down to younger people like yourself. And as we know, the younger generation are not brilliant at listening a lot of the time, and don't take these things on board and still go and it's like being a parent to children, that you give them advice and you know they're still going to go and make the same mistakes you did. So you can only try and pass stuff on to people, and sometimes they listen and sometimes they won't. And I'm always happy to try and help people, because I've certainly travelled a lot of bad roads that I would not want to see any well-meaning fellow creative, be that an actor, producer, director, whoever, I would not want to see them travel the same road that I've been down, which I'm not going to get into the things that Johnny covered, but I've been through a lot of the same issues that my friend Johnny Hansler went through, and dealt with a very, very, very difficult depression last year, which nearly had some fatal consequences, and I'll leave that there.
Wow.
And that made me reevaluate a lot of things in my life as well, including the people that were around me at the time, and you know, who was there for me and who wasn't, and it really showed me who my true friends were. So this business is not easy. You know, everybody says
it's very lonely.
a bit crazy.
It's lonely.
It can be very lonely. Can be very lonely. That's why a lot of people in the industry end up dating people in the industry. Because I mean, I personally have tended not to do that, but a lot of people do, because they don't, so the people understand the complexities of the journey, and it's a very difficult sea to navigate sometimes, and you're never really sure if something's going to work and if it's going to be a success or not, and you can only just keep trying. And I mean, I was born to do this. I know I'm a good writer. That's one thing I will not put myself down over. I know I'm a good writer. I will keep getting better as a director as I learn. I think as a director, you never really stop learning. As a writer, of course, you will always continue to grow as a writer as well, but it's a very different discipline to directing. We talked about this last night. Directing is really people managing more than anything. I mean, yeah, you need to learn, you need to know some technical things and stuff, but at the end of the day, you know, a lot of directors try to be DOPs as well, but that's why you have a DOP. You know, that's why you have a director of photography, and I'm better at dealing with actors and trying to guide actors through performance. And if I do my casting well, I shouldn't have to do too much of that. I should have actors on set who know what they're doing and are already in it, and will occasionally ask, you know, do you want it more like this, Lance, or whatever? But normally we'll have a discussion about that before we get to set. So the director's job is really more of a kind of people manager. You tend to do most of the creative work before you get to the set, if you're clever, so that on the set you can troubleshoot. Because 95% of directing is about solving problems.
Absolutely. Managing expectations is well, maybe that's more of a producer's job, but I find myself doing that all the time.
That's definitely Nicola Gregory's role in my life is to manage my expectations of what we can achieve with our minuscule budgets. But I love her to bits. I would work with her any day of the week. So, you know, and no, listen, if I'm still doing this in the last hours of my life and I still haven't made it, whatever that means, I'll tell you something now, I will not have any regrets, because I meet very, very interesting people whilst trying to do this. I'm not really qualified to do anything else. I'm not really able to do anything else. I've got a fairly difficult life and some very complicated health issues, not least of which is I normally have to dash off to the loo every 20 minutes. I don't know how I'm going to work on the desk at McDonald's, needing a toilet break 3 times an hour. So, you know, I'm not really qualified to do anything else where I can't kind of manage my own hours. And
Yeah, but you were saying
well,
something earlier where you don't consider yourself to be a success. I would disagree with that, actually, is because but people think
I think I said
success.
financial success.
Okay, maybe financial stability or financial freedom maybe is a better word than stability. But like success is in the eye of the beholder. You know what I mean? Like, is Tom Cruise successful? Yes, of course he is. Are you and I successful? And for different ways, yes, okay, fair enough. We're not, making the same money Tom Cruise makes or have the same notoriety that he does. But if you can get out of bed every day and do something you love, and be happy with that and push the bar just a little bit further every day and work on something that you are passionate about, whether it's creating a script, a TV show, a cake, whatever the hell it is, it doesn't matter. That to me is success. And I always say to people whenever they ask me for any advice is this game that we're playing, because that's what it is, it's a goddamn game. It is about the journey, not the destination. Enjoy the trip, because if you're waiting to be happy until you get to Tom Cruise's front porch or whatever or wherever you deem success to be, well, then you're going to find that Tom Cruise's front porch isn't going to give you anything when you get there.
Now that's the key message of the Lord of the Rings, which is, the message of the Lord of the Rings said by Tolkien himself is it's all about enjoying the journey of what these people go through. And that is completely true. I've said this to actors, and Johnny and I had this conversation more than once, which I've noticed a tendency on actors, particularly on low-budget indie projects, which is, let's face it, been 90% of the stuff I've done. They're always thinking about the next gig, and sometimes they forget to enjoy themselves and enjoy the process, which they love. They're doing a job they love. They kind of forget to just kind of let themselves go in the moment and enjoy the job they're on. Mm-hmm. And they're always thinking about the next job and worrying about that. And I get the nature of the industry is that. Mm-hmm. But stop for a second and just, enjoy the fact that you're on a set and doing what you love, and stay in that moment, and maybe worry about the next call from your agent, the day before the after party or whatever. But don't bring it with you to set every day, because I've seen people that do that, and it's not healthy for them mentally, and I think they enjoy their process a lot less. I mean, look, success for me, I'll tell you what success for me would be, is there's a lot of actors that I really want to work with. Like, for example, one actor I really want to work with is a guy called Jason Mazza. He's not the most famous actor on the planet. I happen to think he's phenomenally talented. I've got roles for him in several scripts I've written, but I know that I can't give Jason Mazza's agent a call unless I've got a fully funded project, and I'm saying I've got a part for Jason, he's going to get paid $5,000. Because me and Jason don't have history. We don't have friendship. We know each other, but we don't have a friendship history. Mm-hmm. He's not someone I've done a favour for. He's not someone I can call and say, can you come and do a day on Behind Closed Doors for me? I might be able to pay you £100 in a brown envelope. He's not someone I can have that conversation with. But he's someone I really want to work with. So success for me will just be getting to the stage where I'm getting paid for what I do, whether that's writing, directing, whatever it is, because I seem to do nearly all of my work for fuck all, and getting paid properly, but not only getting paid properly, but getting the work produced to a standard that I'm happy with, that allows me to have the reputation to work with the actors that I want to work with. And before they were really famous, I really wanted to work with Andrew Lincoln. I invited Andy Lincoln off the back of him being in This Life and seeing him on stage in Blue and Orange, which he was phenomenal in, along with Chewie Ejiofor and Bill Nighy. What a triple cast that was.
That's a
I've
powerhouse.
invited Bill Nighy to come and see 5 of my plays. I invited Bill Nighy to come and see The Journey. We had a part for Bill Nighy in Pegasus Bridge. These are all people I want to work with, but these are all people I'm not going to get a chance to work with unless I get to that level where I've got those properly funded projects. And also in those projects, I want to also give jobs to the people that have supported me, the Jojo Bartons, the Oaken sisters, the Alex Tabrizi's, the Richard Oakeses, the people that have supported me now on low-end projects where I have got some of them some paid work now and then, but it's always been very low end, the Tony Fadils. These are all phenomenally talented people that are not really going to get people reaching down the wall and pulling up their own careers anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be able to take all those people with me. And that was the biggest disappointment for me on Pegasus Bridge, was there were so many people on that film where I was paying back a thank you. Jason Fleming, Danny Webb, Phil Davis. You know, there were so many people that were getting a thank you for supporting me. Here's a nice big paycheck and a great part.
Mm-hmm.
And I let them all down because that film didn't happen. And it was my one chance to, I mean, yeah, it was going to be great for my career, don't get me wrong, but that project was really my chance to say thank you to a lot of people that had helped me for a very long time, that had been to see my plays, that had been in my plays and not, you know, done stuff on the fringe where we all know we're not going to get paid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And,
well, it's a matter of time. It's first of all, it's not your fault that didn't get made. As you well know, so many things that have the chops to be made don't get made. But you know, as you know, there are Hexes on the go, Fallen Eagles on the go. There's a number of people, myself and Jimmy, and others, Tony, and a number of others, all working on various projects. So I'm sure one of them will stick, and then we can hopefully bring as many of our friends along the way with us as we can.
That's all you can do at the end of the day. It's a bit like a bowling ball, you know. When you let a bowling ball go, once you let it go, how many pins it knocks down isn't up to you. It's up to the ball.
Absolutely.
You can only do everything you can to give the ball the best chance of success. And what I'm doing with my writing at the minute is I'm reaching out to as many people as possible who I personally like and I get on with and I like their work ethic and I think they're talented. And I'm making connections and I'm forming professional relationships. Johnny Neal, for example, is one, more recent one. And knowing that these are people that I want to work with in future, and hopefully one of us or other of us will have a project that will hit it off somewhere. And the more you put that out there, and the more you do favours for people that you can see are people that would do favours for you, it's a karma thing. I'm a big believer in karma. And believe me, some people have got some karma coming, believe me.
Oh.
So I'm a big believer in karma, and there's a lot of people that are owed some good karma from their associations with me. And I very much, on the final thing I'll say, I very much look forward to the day that I can pay back those thank yous with a nice paid job for those people through either my connections directly or me giving them that job. If I'm still, I don't know how much longer I'm going to do directing for, because I'm not a young guy, and directing is a young man's game. But you know, Ken Loach is still going, so we'll see.
He sure is. Lance, buddy, on that, we're gonna call it a day because we have had an amazing conversation, but a very, very long one. So today's episode, as I said before, will be out June 15th at 2 p.m. GMT, that's UK time, and this will be over 2 parts, so 2-hour parts.
Was it 2 hours? Is that how long we've been? Oh,
yeah,
God.
This one's 2:02, and the previous one was like 1:40, I believe. So we're just under 4 hours, so like 3 hours 40, 3 hours 45, something like that.
Well, people were bored. I hope it was of interest.
We've had a lot of people getting on contact today, a lot of people watching in on the various players, and as I said, you can get this via YouTube, so the video element of this, and then the audio only, so the podcast version of this will be available, as I said, June 15th, 2 p.m. Podcast via all the podcast platforms, and the video via YouTube. Lance, you've been an absolute star, my friend. Thank you so much for your time and all your incredible stories. We could talk for hours and hours and hours, but my how does that saying go? My stomach feels like my throat's been cut. Is that how it goes? I'm hungry.
I think it goes, I really need a wee, is what the saying is.
Stick up our little man again. Yeah.
That software that we put on Sean Cronin's computers.
Yeah. I'm just going to email it to him now.
So,
buddy,
yeah, thanks for
it's been a pleasure.
I'll listen, when I've got a project on the move and I've got something happening, let's come on again. And
sure, absolutely.
we can talk about the process of how it evolved, and we can just maybe focus on the one thing. And of course, another thing that we've talked about doing is maybe doing a movie review show.
Yeah.
That you and I might do, because Jason and I, in case you haven't noticed, we are of different generations. I'm the more younger, good-looking one, obviously. But we were brought up at different times on different movies. I'm very much a late 70s, 80s movies lad. So we have talked about a movie review show that we might do together. So who knows? We might see that happen.
Could see that coming as well in the coming weeks. But yeah. But guys, everyone, thank you so much for everyone for watching, for commenting in, for leaving your remarks and your various different things that you did. We really appreciate you interacting, because that is the entire point of the live aspect of it, is for you guys to be able to interact and to be able to come on and to chime in and also ask my various guests whatever you'd like to know, really. So thank you very much for doing that. We will be back with Massey Furlong in the coming days, I believe day after tomorrow. Again, we will let you know, of course, and everything that we've talked about today in this episode in either part. So the Diamonds in the Sky book series, the journey, all the various things, the relevant and pertinent links will be in the description below, which is just right down here. So please do jump on. A number of people have jumped into the comments, Lance, and they're saying that Imran, to be one, just as pops to my mind, has ordered the journey. So it's en route.
It probably means he's ordered Diamonds in the Sky, because you can't order the journey yet.
There we go. That's what I meant. Yeah. I was testing you.
You can order Diamonds in the Sky on Amazon now in either Kindle or hardback one, or softback book. There's the original copy. So that's one way to see my work. The Borderlands, the play, there's a good video of that that's actually on the Outcast page. If you go and have a look, that's there. You can see that as well. And then the journey's got a page on Facebook which is called Grease the Movie, not like the country.
Okay.
Because the original title of the journey was Grease. You can see why we changed it, because everybody said, "Oh, what, like the musical?"
Yeah.
So but we'll update on there if and when the film gets a release or a distribution deal. It'd be nice if I actually got one where I could get back the money I put in, at least. I can't see it happening, but you never know.
Wouldn't that be nice? Lance, buddy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And to everyone else out there as well, thank you guys. Be kind to one another, be kind to yourself, look out for everyone, and try and see.
Don't forget to subscribe to The Hub for the latest episodes. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms and media. The Hub, your weekly fix of all things film and television, and some other stuff. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Jason Matthewson.